Alright, welcome to the Security Plus objectives for auditing, logging, and monitoring. We're going to look at log server and application data, and we're going to finish up with monitoring systems and applications. So let's go ahead and jump right into system logging. Well, first thing we need to talk about is the event viewer. The event viewer is the Windows logging tool. And what you should know is that there are several different types of log types. The way to think of this is files and folders. For example, you have a folder for application logs. You have one for security events and security related successes and failures. And then of course for the system itself. What I find is the biggest factor that is overlooked here is that people don't know how to go into the logs to find the information that they need, at least quickly or effectively. Like, for example, people come up to me and they say, hey, I got a problem with this, what do you think? And one of my first questions nearly all the time is, well, what did your log files tell you? And they say, well, I don't know, I didn't look in the log files. And to me, that's the problem right there, because you can typically go in, read your log files, and your log files will tell you the story. So for example, here on the bottom right we have a picture of Event Viewer, and it shows that there are disk errors. Well, if I were looking at this on a regular basis, for example daily or weekly, I would go in here and I would see this type of disk error, and that would concern me, and I'd work proactively to fix this error prior to losing my data. So be familiar with the Event Viewer. It is the logging tool that Windows or Microsoft uses to collect details on different applications, different services, and you can find most of the good stuff in the application's security and system. However, on a domain controller, you also get DNS and Active Directory types of log folders as well. So be familiar and fluent with the Event Viewer. Alright, here's a picture of the Windows 2008 Server Event Viewer. Okay, notice it looks just a little bit different than what you would see on a workstation. It's different in the capacity that it has lots of details related to the server side of things rather than just the client side of things. You still have, application, security, and system events, but what you get in addition to that is detailed information. For example, if you notice underneath applications and services, you've got DNS, you got hardware, Internet Explorer, key management services for public and private key related information, and then you can go into the Microsoft folder and you can get custom reports in addition to that as well. Alright, so be fluent with viewing the event logs. Okay, keep in mind here that when you look at an event, there are several items of interest that you need to be familiar with. One is the category of the event. Different events have different categories, and what I find helpful is to sort by this field periodically. That way you can look at all of the events under a specific category at the same time. So let's say if it was, for example, that disk failure like we saw from before. Well, I'd want to know if there's one failure or several failures. And there may be, an hour or a day between each event. So if I sort by that, among other things, I can group that together mentally and see that and analyze that to say, well, is this a recurring problem? Does it happen every single day? Does it happen every single hour? What's the frequency that this is happening on? Also, you want the computer, you want to be able to have that so you can track down who, what, when, where, why, and how of the event. In other words, was it a computer at this site or another site? The date and the time of the event is also extremely important, because you have to make sure that your log files are synchronized, because if you're going to compare logs from many systems, well, if they're off by a minute, that could be the difference between hundreds and maybe even in some cases thousands of events. So you'd want the time between computers to be synchronized to the millisecond. That way, if you look at 12:15 on one computer, you can expect to see a corresponding or correlated event on another computer at the exact same time, without having to go up or down in the log files by several hundreds or even thousands of events. Also, you have the event ID. This is going to be crucial for you because if you have to research this online, the event ID is a great thing to research. Just simply go to Google and type in your event ID and see what other people are saying about that event. And you will be linked to different types of forums, different types of discussion groups, and all of that will help you find the information you need. It'll also tell you if other people are having a problem and perhaps what they did to solve that problem. Also, the source of the event. The source of the event is going to be different depending on which log files you're looking at. For example, if you're looking at the application log, the source could be something like Outlook or Office software. If it's the security log, it could be the Microsoft Windows security auditing component as a common source. Or if it's the system, it could be something just as simple as the Service Control Manager, or maybe application experience, just to name a few. Who knows? It could be kernel processor power, for example. Either way, no matter what the source is, you can also use that to help filter out the events when you're doing your online research. Next, you have the type. Types include information, warning, errors, and then lastly you'd have user. And this would be, for example, details on the user ID that's in question. So these are just among the few that are of interest when you're trying to track down log files and what they mean. So let's talk a little bit more about the types. Types would be information. Now these are very, very helpful. In other words, when your computer is telling you, hey, I've got some information for you, you're going to use these to help profile the system in question. Not necessarily a warning or an error, but they're informational, and they certainly can help you forecast or at least prevent problems. Next, you have warnings, which is kind of the middle of the road as far as severity is concerned. Warnings, you'd want to start tracking those down, because if you can fix the warnings ahead of time, that will help prevent errors. It certainly won't eliminate the likelihood of an error happening, but it certainly is a proactive way to prevent those warnings from happening. And then, of course, the most critical of these would be the errors, and this is actually something going wrong. It could be as simple as a server's crashing, or it could be related to a hard drive. When it comes to the security log, your event types are audit successes and audit failures. Now, this is some sort of event that can be trackable, and you will find out if it was, for example, let me just give you an example. Let's say you want to track privileges of administrators. You want to find out if somebody's adding another administrator into the administrative group. Well, did they do that and have a success doing that? Or did they try to do it and they actually failed and they weren't able to escalate their privileges? So these are just a couple different types of events, and certainly be fluent with these for the Security Plus exam. All right, here's an event details. So you can see, for example, you have your log name. It actually comes from the application log. Your source would be Windows Errors Reporting. The event ID is what you'd want to type into an online search engine to get more information about. The level, which would be information or warnings or errors. In this case, there's no user associated with it, but the computer was a Windows 7 computer. The tasks in this case would be none, and when the event was logged. And again, that's extremely important to have everybody on a synchronized time schedule so that these all can be correlated with accurate times.